In the halls of Northwood High, there were two worlds. The first belonged to Connor, the king of the popular crowd, whose charisma was matched only by his cruelty. His world was loud, full of laughter and high fives, built on the backs of those he deemed lesser. The second world was a quiet one, belonging to Maya. She navigated the hallways like a ghost, her nose buried in a book, her presence so subtle she was practically invisible. But not to Connor. For him, Maya's quiet was a canvas, and he loved to paint it with shades of fear and humiliation. It started small. A playful shove in the crowded hallway, a jeer about her second-hand clothes, a lost textbook that would mysteriously reappear in the trash. Each incident chipped away at Maya, but she never fought back. She'd just lower her head, gather her things, and disappear back into her quiet world. Her silence, he thought, was weakness. It fueled him. He mistook her patience for passivity, her gentleness for fragility. He couldn't have been more wrong. What Connor and the rest of Northwood High didn't know was what happened every Tuesday and Thursday after school. While others were at football practice or cheerleading, Maya was in a small, unassuming dojo on the other side of town. There she wasn't a quiet girl. She was a student of discipline, of balance, of control. For 2 years, she had been learning self-defense. Not to fight, but to protect. Not to harm, but to neutralize. Her sensei taught her that true strength wasn't about overpowering others, but about mastering oneself. It was about knowing you could end a fight, so you never had to start one. One afternoon, the two worlds collided. It was after the final bell. The hallways were emptying out, leaving long shadows on the polished floors. Maya was at her locker, packing her bag, when Connor and his friends cornered her. This time, the taunts felt different, sharper. He wanted a bigger reaction. He snatched her sketchbook, her most prized possession, filled with drawings and dreams she shared with no one. "What's this, Maya?" "Drawing little fantasy worlds where you're not a total loser." He sneered, flipping through the pages as his friends laughed. "Please, Connor, give it back," Maya said, her voice barely a whisper, but firm. He laughed, dangling the book just out of her reach. "You want it? Come and get it." He shoved her hard. She stumbled back, but her feet found their balance instantly. The years of training kicked in. Her breathing steadied, her focus sharpened. The chaotic noise of her fear went silent, replaced by a calm, clear focus. "I said, give it back," she repeated, her voice level and steady. Something in her tone surprised him. He saw a flicker of defiance in her eyes he'd never seen before. It enraged him. He dropped the book and lunged, grabbing her by the collar of her shirt. "You think you're tough now?" He snarled, pushing her against the lockers. This was it. The moment her training was for. It wasn't about anger or revenge. It was about safety. In a fluid, almost effortless motion, Maya redirected his momentum. She used his own force against him, twisting his arm in a control lock that brought him to his knees. There was no punch, no kick, just a precise practiced movement that completely neutralized his attack. Connor cried out in surprise and pain, his bravado instantly evaporating. His friends stood frozen, their jaws hanging open. The king of the school was on the floor, held in place by the quiet girl he had tormented for months. Maya held the lock for a second longer, her eyes meeting his. He saw no anger in them, only a quiet, unshakable strength. She released him. Connor scrambled back, clutching his arm, his face a mixture of shock and humiliation. Maya calmly picked up her sketchbook, placed it in her bag, and zipped it up. She looked at the stunned group, her silence now carrying a weight it never had before. It was no longer the silence of fear, but the silence of power. She walked away without a word, her footsteps echoing in the now completely silent hallway. From that day on, everything changed. The whispers that followed Connor were no longer of admiration, but of ridicule. His kingdom had crumbled, not with a roar, but with a whisper of movement. Maya was no longer invisible. She walked the halls with her head held high, not out of pride, but out of a newfound self-assurance. She had found her voice not by shouting, but by knowing she never had to raise it to be heard. She had learned that the greatest power isn't in making others feel small, but in realizing your own strength. Thank you for watching. If you or someone you know is facing bullying, remember that you are not alone and there are people who can help. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. See you next time.